Hey, what's up everybody? Phanteks here, and today we're going to be talking about my water-cooled PC. It's back, it's set up, I've been running it for about a week now, gaming, video editing, all sorts of stuff, and this is kind of the piece that helped start this channel. This is really drove me to start a YouTube channel, is my water-cooled build. And it went away for a while because we had built the water-cooled PC, had a build vlog going of it, and I decided to rebuild it. Ran into some issues and I really put the project on hold for a while. So in this video we're going to talk about the PC and how it's back, what we did to rebuild it, and some of the issues I ran into, along with the recap of some of the previous build vlogs that I kind of left off on. Alrighty guys, I have some cliff notes of the previous videos just to give you a good recap on where we left off on this build. So I'll play those clips and then we're going to talk about the build as it sits now. Hey, what's up guys? Phanteks here, and today I'm going to go ahead and get started on relocating all of our hardware from our previous water-cooled build, which was all in the Define R6 from Fractal Design. And we're going to be moving all that hardware into the Enthoo 719 from Phanteks. So with all that being said guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hey, what's up guys? Phanteks here, and today we're going to be continuing the build on our water-cooled rebuild, the Phanteks Enthoo 719. And more specifically, today we are actually going to be bending the rigid tubing for this build, and that should be the last part of this build. Alrighty guys, well I hope you enjoyed the video. Got some good tips and tricks on how to bend PETG tubing and build a rigid tube water-cooled PC. The reason why I'm not going into more details on this right now is I assembled everything and the PC doesn't actually work right now. Alrighty guys, so there was the recap of this build vlog. It's been on hold for quite a while. As you can see, that last build vlog we did was all the way back in early April, and here we are today, September 13th, but this video might not go out until tomorrow or the following day. But anyways, it's been a long process getting this thing rebuilt and back up and running. And not so much because of the build part, I've just really been putting it off. I got so comfortable with using my ITX rig and really enjoyed that build. And it was doing everything I needed it to do. So I really got comfortable with it and then just kind of set this build aside. Oddly enough, the biggest push for me to get this thing back up and running was Microsoft Flight Simulator. I really wanted to have a higher performing system for this simulator slash game. And my ITX rig was running it, and it was running it very well. I was getting decent frame rates. Not great as far as numbers, but as far as like smoothness and just user experience was overall really well. I feel like I was really working that 2060. It was reaching temps that I don't usually like to run my stuff at. It was like 70C. So that kind of made me want to push forward and get this water-cooled PC rebuilt. And also too, to where I could record some gameplay, as you guys might have seen on the channel, of Microsoft Flight Simulator. So talking about what went wrong in that last build vlog, I still don't exactly know, but we did have a motherboard failure. I hooked up everything, turned on the PC, everything appeared to be running okay. I noticed my fans didn't come on, so I ended up shutting down the system, checking my wiring, and oddly enough I just didn't have the hub in the Phanteks 719 connected to one of my SATA connections, so that hub wasn't getting any SATA power. So I did that, turned on the system, everything came on for a brief second, and then it just shut down, and the motherboard looked dead as a doornail. Like, we weren't getting the usual RGB lightings whenever it was getting ATX power. Like I said, it was just looked completely dead. Until the next day after that last vlog, I looked at the side I/O panel on that motherboard, and the clear CMOS button would flash. It would just blink green like every 10 seconds. So I don't know if the motherboard is just in a very locked state and it didn't like something to do with a power connection issue. I'm not sure yet. I'm still in touch with ASUS trying to get it RMA'd and get it warrantied. So I have yet to really know what happened to it. So it still is kind of eerie to me. And that leads us into another reason why I didn't go back and try and rebuild the system right away, is it kind of made me gun shy with some of the, I mean, this is expensive hardware we're working with. You know, I can't just be losing a, $400 motherboard, when I build something. And I think it just makes it worse when you have more and more expensive hardware you're working with. And I try to take the best safety precautions for the hardware. I know a lot of guys don't wear like an anti-static wristband. I do. I try to be very cognizant, make sure I'm grounded out at all times when I'm handling the hardware. Definitely made me want to be more cautious than I already am when it comes to handling PC hardware. And I don't think it was an issue of, static discharge, as I was very careful with all of that stuff. I don't think it was an issue with water because we didn't have any leaks, and actually we might have had one, but it was all the way at the other side of the case where the reservoir is, and it's way away from the motherboard, so that wouldn't be an issue. So there's no telling. My predictions, I was very concerned that the Noctua Industrial fans we were using might have shorted it, or they were just taking up way too much power, and something in the motherboard didn't like that, so it just decided to lock itself out to protect it. I don't know. That was one prediction. Another prediction I had, which I wouldn't think would have affected this, and this wasn't intentional. When I was kind of testing this PC, I plugged in a ATX power cable to the power supply, and I think it was from my SF600 power supply in my ITX build. And I looked at that AC power cable versus the one that comes with the EVGA, and it's slightly thinner. It's like almost not even noticeable. So I don't know if the gauging of the wire had to contribute to the failure of the motherboard. I really don't know yet, so I'll have to wait and see what ASUS says. So moving on from the previous build vlog and talking about this build now, I'm very excited to have it back. I didn't realize how much I missed it, honestly. And what we ended up doing, I finally pulled the trigger on a new motherboard. So I ended up going with the Strix Z390F gaming motherboard from ASUS. And even though I had issues with my previous ASUS Maximus 11 formula, I'm still a big ASUS fan. I've had the Prime motherboards in the past, and I've always kind of stuck with them, so I ended up going with another one. And it's been great so far. It's very basic, and that's what I like about it. It doesn't have any onboard Wi-Fi, and it has limited features, but honestly, it's everything I need. And really the only thing that I really needed out of a new motherboard was the dual M.2 slots and possibly M.2 NVMe slots on the motherboard. So I want to make sure I fill in all the gaps in this video for anybody that has just stumbled upon it, or for those of you guys following the channel and have seen my previous water-cooled build. So why I decided to rebuild the system started off with the maintenance I had to do on the previous water-cooled system, where I had issues with the pastel fluid. So that consisted of me draining the system and trying to clean all the blocks and stuff, so I had to strip out everything. And I figured while I was doing that in the process, I had seen some builds in the Phanteks Enthoo 719, and I really liked that case and wanted to do a build in it. And I also thought it would be a win-win having the system already stripped down, can build it in a new case. And this case, I'm expecting it to be much easier to maintenance, as there's a lot more room to work in it. And also I wanted to increase the cooling power just with new fans. I was very disappointed in the previous water-cooled build in the Fractal design Define R6. I don't think it was the case that was the issue, but the fans I had in there were also from Fractal, and the cooling was just very weak on it for a water-cooled system, in my opinion. I would typically see idle temps around 35 to 38 C, both on the GPU and CPU, which seemed a little warm to me. I was kind of disappointed in that. Things got better as I gamed on it, though. Whenever the system was under load, I wouldn't see it go much higher than, I don't think I ever saw it go higher than 55 C. So that wasn't too bad. But I felt like the system could be much better and should be much better. I'm sure many would make the argument that having the larger case is what's helping the cooling much more, and I really don't believe case size has a lot to do with it. I think it's more of having really good fresh air coming into the system, along with having adequate fans to exhaust all the hot air out, is more important than case size. And that's why a lot of these ITX rigs, like my ITX rig in the Ncase M1, runs at really good temperatures, about the same as a regular ATX size case. So the biggest change that I believe that's really contributing to the better cooling in this system is the Noctua Industrial fans I have in it. I have two 140mm fans on my 280mm EK Slim Rad on the front, and then I have three of their 120mm industrial fans on the top, serving as exhaust. So I think this combination of these very high-powered fans is doing a tremendous job cooling, and they're really good fans. So those Noctua Industrial fans do a tremendous job cooling the system. A lot of people steer away from them just because they're the industrial ones, that they're not really known for having good ambient or a lack of ambient noise. They do tend to be kind of loud, but right now I have them set to silent in my BIOS settings, and they barely have to ramp up at all, so they're really quiet. I mean, it's running right now in this video. I don't know if you guys have been able to hear it any, but it hasn't ramped up at all, and they're pretty quiet as long as you have them set on silent, and they do such a good job cooling the system. We've dropped the CPU and GPU anywhere from probably 6 to 10 degrees C. So my GPU typically idles at like 27 C, and then my CPU idles right around 30. So great temperature drops, and then under load during like Microsoft Flight Simulator, my GPU hasn't exceeded 45 degrees C. So I'm very, very happy with the cooling capabilities that have been added to this system, as it now I feel like it's really running where it should be. So for this build too, I really went with the utilitarian approach to a PC build, not to the point where we're not water cooling, because obviously we did water cool this one, but I wanted to kind of simplify it. We still did rigid tubing, which it was complicated at times, but not bad. I got pretty simple bends, and I think I only messed up a couple times, but more so utilitarian, as in, you know, we don't have a ton of RGB wiring coming from fans and, you know, RGB fan lighting controllers, stuff like that. We have our plain industrial Noctua fans, and the only RGB we have is coming off of the components, which I really like. I think it gives it just the perfect amount of RGB. Sometimes I have gone overboard in the past with the Corsair light loop fans, and they're cool, but it can be a little much, so I like that this is a bit more subtle. And another thing we did too, I went with a mix of Corsair's Hydro X series fluid, which is just clear, and then some distilled water. So we're running a fully clear fluid that I'm hoping we won't have any issues with, and I won't have to swap for a very long time, as the pastel fluid that I had in the previous build did give me some issues, and there's much more maintenance to do with that. So I'm hopefully cutting out that portion of it by running just clear fluid. So overall, the changes I made to this system between the case, the Phanteks Enthoo 719, the Noctua Industrial fans, and the clear fluid, I am super happy with so far. The case was absolutely phenomenal to build in. Lots of room to work. Everything is very well thought out, and it's one of my favorite cases I've built in so far. And as I mentioned, I'm super happy with the industrial Noctua fans, just because they do such a fantastic job cooling. And now that I have them set to silent in the BIOS, I really don't have any issues with them being too loud and having too much ambient noise, even in a video like this. So recapping, this is hardware from my last water-cooled build, but for those of you that haven't seen those videos, or the earlier build vlog videos of this build, going over the hardware, it's an i7 8700K. We got 32 gigs of Gskillz Trident Z RAM. We are running the Strix Z390F motherboard, as I mentioned earlier, and we're running a GTX 1080 Ti. Now, it is kind of depressing that this is rebuilt now here in September of 2020, and lots of new hardware has come out since this hardware. The 1080 Ti is getting kind of old, and I'm running 8th gen Intel on a 9th gen motherboard. Now Intel's on 10th gen. Like I said, it's kind of depressing that these manufacturers come out with new stuff all the time, especially this year. They've been going hard. AMD has released tons of new stuff, but getting past all that, it's still a really good system for me. It runs really well. It runs everything I need. In the more intensive stuff as well, like Adobe Premiere Pro, it does really well with. Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've been getting into 3D modeling too, so it runs Fusion 360 very well. So all that stuff into consideration, it definitely doesn't make my system and your system, as long as it runs what you need it to run, our systems aren't obsolete per se. And the storage that I have on this one, just like the last one, has 2 terabytes of NVMe storage, which from the ITX build I only had 1 terabyte M.2 hard drive, which housed the operating system, all my games, and pretty much everything on one. So it's kind of nice. I got a bit of a split on this one, where I have one drive housing the operating system, along with some, crucial software that I use, and then the other drive I've kind of used for my game drive / scratch drive for some of my video projects that I'm currently working on. So the great thing about this build right now too, it does have room to expand if I want to add a second system, being an ITX build. That can be added right down in that bottom corner, which is really neat. And I got lots more room for hard drive space. So there's so much that can be done with this case and this build right now, but at the moment it really serves me well. So the only thing that we're going to be doing is adding some sleeved cable extensions for my GPU and the 24 pin for the motherboard. The previous custom cables that I did fit the Define R6 very well, but they were just a tad short for everything else, and they were really kind of stretching things out, so I didn't want to do that. So I sleeved it, or I wired everything with the stock cables with the intent to just add some sleeved cable extensions in the future. So that's going to wrap up this video, guys. Just wanted to put this video out talking about where we left off on this water-cooled rebuild and what went wrong during the rebuild and why this build got put off so far. And now that it's back, I also wanted to talk about the improvements we've made and how much better the system is running as a whole. If you guys have any questions on this build or the previous water-cooled build we did on the channel, be sure to leave a comment and I'll be more than happy to try and answer any questions. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to give us a thumbs up, and if you want to see more tech related videos like this one, be sure to subscribe. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.